Hey team, welcome back to Spec. Today we've got the EL at Queensland Raceway. We're going to find out what she was going to do. Had a few issues with the ute last night, so she didn't get to tow it out here, but big thanks to my brother-in-law for letting me borrow his ute, so we actually made it. Let's have a look at her. Have a look, there was a last minute change. I've a set of Timu carbon fibre brake ducts that turned up just before we had to load the car in the trailer. So I quickly hacked the bumper, Sikaflex them in, and tied in the included piping to passively cool the front brakes. I had a program that I wanted to run, and it didn't start to plan. I learned a big lesson the second I jumped in the car. Close the door before you put the harnesses on. I had only driven the car at car park speeds, and having put new pads in the front, I wanted to bed them in. I ended up using Bendix Ultimate pads, which say the no bed-in procedure required, but this didn't compute with me, so I wanted to bed them in anyway. Plan was to go out last and run a couple of good brake applications before I could start flying into turn 1. Unfortunately, this 8.6 wouldn't let me go out last. When I hit the track, probably a good time to mention that the only gauge that worked on the dash was the fuel. I didn't know how fast I was going. But after the first brake application, the 8.6 was right up behind me, so I didn't want to start brake testing him. That was it for the bed-in procedure. As I entered the straight, I was super nervous. I had no idea what car I had underneath me. Then I could see the orange light and Alexa spinning in the distance. I've never been so happy to see an orange light. We all had to slow down. I got a taste of how everything was working. Goal of the first session was to finish. I was braking super early and not really wringing its neck. The brakes gave me zero confidence. They were super spongy, and at one point I could smell that burning brake smell. I had to let the 8.6 go. But lo and behold, it made it through the session. I always run around a bit after a session to get some more air through the radiator and brakes. Normally I go for a drive up to the drag strip and back, but this one being unregistered, I just circulated the paddock area. Now was time to find out how quick she went. Before I started, I thought that I might be lucky to get a 1:10, and if I'd achieved anything below a 1:12, I would have been super happy. I'll look up the time, and it's a 1, good start, 07. I can't explain how ecstatic I was at this point. I was babying it around and I was still good enough for a 1:07. With a session under my belt, it was time to push it a bit harder. On the first flyer, I shifted into fourth, then the car started missing. In my head, the morning had come to an end. I lift off the gas, shift down to third, and then she fired to life again. So I dropped the hammer and went for it. I knew the brakes were squishy, but I wanted to push them as far as they would go. As I pushed it harder and harder, I realised they weren't fading. They just felt like crap. So I kept going harder and started passing. Feeling good with a clear track, I thought it was time to set some fast times. On the sprint track, when you come through what they call the dipper, there's a bit of time to steal if you shortcut the inside of the corner. Unfortunately, I tried to steal too much and the car didn't like it at all. I hate being the person to hold people up, so I waited for the MX-5 to come through again, and I was happy to just cruise home. He mustn't have got the memo because he almost sprayed turn 1. A couple of good laps under my belt, I wasn't too convinced that I'd made up much time, but on review I'd cut it down to a 105. So last session before they changed to the Clubman track. By this point I was ecstatic with how the car has gone so far. The only way it could get better was if I could drive it on the trailer at the end of the morning, but I'm not going to put it there yet without knowing if I can slice a bit more time out of it. I've got a good position in front of the MX-5 but behind the 8.6. But as it turns out, as I got quicker, I got closer. And closer. And finally past the 8.6, which I had to let go in the first session. While it appears pretty sedate when looking through the windscreen, this is actually what it looked like from the steering wheel. And when I got back into the pits, I was blown away. 1:02. Not in my wildest dream with the setup of the car did I think it'd be that quick. I did run one session on the Clubman track to get a feel for how the car would be on that configuration. Next time they'll probably start on that track. Unfortunately it started out horribly and the mist came back and didn't go away for ages. But then it did clear and I got stuck behind traffic. But I did have to watch these thick flames coming out of this MR2, but at this point the most important thing was to drive the car on the trailer, and I didn't do the last 2 sessions. Okay, I'm back at HQ, and I bet you're wondering why I park the cars like this. Well, if each of these car parked for 1 second, the Barra swapped EL drift car is only here. Considering the GS has a 500 rear wheel horsepower, big brake and coilovers, and the Mach 1 has almost all the handling package parts, I thought it'd be on the other side of the car park. I'm blown away. Yeah, the Mach 1 was street spec, and I was being conservative because I didn't want to run the splitter off the track. And yes, the EL has a Barra swap, but essentially this could be any EL Falcon with a bit more power and good tyres. It's not even lined that much. The only things missing are the rear seat and the bumper. There's so much weight I could easily take out of it. One being I ran too much fuel. These two will be running out of fumes by the end of 6 sessions. I started this one with a full tank, and yeah, I only ran 4 out of 6 sessions, but I only used a quarter of a tank. That's got to be 50 kilos I was carrying around for nothing. What this does do is validate the platform. All the effort that will be required into building faith will be worth it. It also shows that if you, yes you, I'm talking to you, have an old Falcon sitting in the backyard rotting away, bring it back and turn it into a race car. I want a big thank you to my old boy for helping out with preparing the car, and to my brother-in-law for loaning me his ute to tow it out. Actually, the guy who sold me the car had the same name as my brother-in-law too. So, can I ask you to thank a Tom? It might not be the right one, but I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Until next time, remember, there's more to going fast than going fast. See you later.